Richard,
Yes,
we're here in New York City.
yes we are. My home.
You're outside.
Yes, I am.
It's about to get cold.
Get ready to uncover New York's hidden truth behind the bright lights. Tens of thousands struggle to survive each night, their plight drowned out by the city's constant noise. In this sleepless city, thousands move from subway to subway, searching for heat, food, or even a flicker of hope. Faces worn by the elements weave between shining towers and luxury entrances, revealing a quiet emergency unfolding in the nation's biggest city. While the skyline climbs, so do the odds against those excluded left to survive in a city built for wealth, not for them. Today, we enter their reality, a reality whose truth quietly reverberates beneath the cityscape that refuses to see it.
That Bronx shit? Bronx
The secret behind the city curtain. At the core of New York City, homelessness is no longer hidden from Queens' main roads to Bronx stoops. Makeshift camps now sprawl beneath overpasses and beside metal fences. Across multiple boroughs, sidewalks have morphed into informal villages lined with cooking stoves, donated wardrobes, and the steady buzz of small generators. This journey through New York's overlooked spaces reveals a stark contrast: wealth towering above and desperation spreading just below. Over 60,000 people, men, women, and children, spend the night in shelters across New York, a number that's doubled since 10 years ago. Beyond those in shelters, tens of thousands more go uncounted, taking refuge in parks, on subway benches, or in front of familiar corner stores. When winter hits and the temperature drops, local nonprofits see a 30% rise in unsheltered individuals seeking warmth. These figures aren't just numbers, they represent people who once had steady paychecks and rental agreements, now facing relentless hardship. Today, single moms, military veterans, gig workers, and recent asylum seekers all find themselves navigating the same unstable reality. Though their stories differ, the outcome remains: fighting every day to be seen enough for aid, but unseen enough to avoid being forced out. What does it say when the city that never rests turns away from those who need rest the most? As commuters speed through dawn, these lives fade into the background, drowned out by the relentless lights of Times Square. Behind each worn-down tarp is someone with dreams, mistakes, and a longing for connection. Like any journey that explores unseen corners, this piece sets out to illuminate the lives lived in the shadow of towering steel and glass. If these stories strike a chord, like, comment, and subscribe to follow us as we explore New York's hidden human stories. To grasp the depth of this emergency, we need to dig into what's pushing thousands from homes to sidewalks. Landscape features: New York City and surroundings. Along the I-95 corridor, cities such as Philadelphia, Boston, and Washington, D.C. confront homelessness in patterns that both reflect and differ from New York's struggle. When it comes to sheer numbers, New York stands far above the rest, with approximately 140,000 people in shelters nightly during 2024, compared to Philadelphia's 5,600 across emergency housing and outreach. But these raw counts don't tell the full story. Each city's population size and policies create distinct versions of the crisis. Philadelphia shelters about 7.8 people per 10,000 residents, while New York's rate sits at 17.4. Even with fewer total cases, Philadelphia sees comparable winter surges. Outreach crews reported a 25% rise in unsheltered individuals when temperatures dropped below 32 degrees Fahrenheit in January 2025. Boston's emergency and transitional housing numbers hit around 7,300 during the winter of 2024 to 2025, fueled by rent increases of 8% over the previous year. In early 2025, Washington, D.C., despite its smaller size, provided shelter for about 6,380 people nightly, while another estimated 1,200 slept outside. Since 2018, D.C. Bold Housing First program has cut chronic street homelessness nearly in half, though shortages in affordable units and steep costs still leave many waiting. New York's version of Housing First has shown early promise, but scaling it across a population 5 times larger brings serious logistical challenges. In nearby Newark, New Jersey, about 4,800 people entered shelters or transitional housing in 2024, 30% more than before the pandemic, with fewer than 300,000 residents. Newark's rate, about 16 per 10,000, is similar to New York's, showing how nearby towns absorb spillover when core boroughs run out of capacity. These regional contrasts reveal unexpected patterns. New York's totals are massive, but on a per-person basis, cities like Boston and Newark face similar or even greater strain. Philadelphia contends with a higher share of unsheltered residents, while D.C. demonstrates the potential of streamlined housing first if enough homes could be built to meet demand. Everywhere, harsh winters stretch shelter capacity, and rising rents continue to push more families toward homelessness, keeping these regional differences in focus. It's time to explore how New York can adapt successful strategies from nearby cities into citywide solutions. Fundamental factors driving the shift. At a distance, New York City's skyline stands as a symbol of progress, but that very progress has deepened the divide between wealth and hardship. In the last 5 years, average rents in Manhattan have surged almost 15%, far outpacing the earnings of 80% of working families. Formerly affordable areas have undergone swift gentrification, forcing longtime locals out of the neighborhoods they've called home for decades. But economic disparity isn't the whole story. Since 2010, nearly 30% of inpatient psychiatric beds have closed across New York State, cutting vital support for thousands. People released from hospitals without secure housing often land in shelters or worse, sleeping rough just weeks later. Substance use disorders both lead to and stem from homelessness, locking individuals in a cycle few escape without focused care. Immigration brings added complexity. Tens of thousands of recent asylum seekers, many without papers or connections, struggle to find shelter upon arrival. Emergency barracks have been opened, but the system is overwhelmed, leaving some to rest on train benches or in rundown legal centers. What do we do when wages lag far behind living costs? When even full-time work no longer secures a roof? These are the questions echoing across New York. Sudden financial hits like losing a job or a surprise hospital bill can set off a chain reaction of evictions and fines that unravel fragile family stability. The outcome: a perfect storm where rising rents, eroded services, and structural failures push the most vulnerable straight into homelessness. To reverse the trend, New York must tackle both the immediate symptoms and the deeper systems feeding the crisis. Now that we've outlined the roots, it's time to examine the safety nets designed to support those on the brink of losing everything. Social protection mechanism. New York boasts one of the country's largest social safety nets, yet it still struggles to meet the overwhelming demand. At the core of this system lies HRA Homebase, an early response initiative built to help families stay housed. Homebase caseworkers coordinate with landlords to arrange payment options, while legal teams push back against unfair eviction attempts. Each day, Homebase staff visit hundreds of vulnerable households, providing rental support and personalized help. At the same time, the Department of Social Services runs the Homelessness Prevention Administration, which offers one-time grants and interest-free loans for back rent. These emergency funds have saved thousands from eviction, but many beneficiaries still teeter on the edge with no financial cushion. Outreach crews from mobile clinics to religious nonprofits travel along subways and park perimeters, handing out meals, clothes, and shelter referrals. Shelter options vary, from communal dorms to scattered apartments offering integrated support services. Recently, New York has scaled up its supportive housing model. Permanent, subsidized units paired with on-site mental health and addiction care. Initial figures show that in pilot areas, these units have cut long-term street homelessness by as much as 40%. But do these programs truly rebuild dignity and stability? Many shelters run over capacity, with waitlists stretching for months. Families with children often cycle through hotels and packed shelters, deepening their trauma and disrupting their kids' schooling. Amid this web of aid, it's volunteers and nonprofit leaders who serve quietly on the front lines. They hand out hygiene kits, run mobile health events, and lead job readiness classes in community spaces. These small acts can be the tipping point keeping someone off the street for one more night or guiding them toward long-term recovery. While these supports provide crucial help, addressing the crisis at scale will require bold steps from public leadership, which we'll examine next. Strategic policy response. Facing growing urgency, New York City and state have rolled out a wave of bold initiatives to curb the rising tide of homelessness. The state's 5-year housing strategy worth $25 billion targets the creation or preservation of 100,000 affordable units, each designed to include built-in support services. Meanwhile, the city's Bridge to Home program channels $30 million into embedding mental health and addiction professionals into shelter sites, ensuring immediate access to care upon arrival. Across the boroughs, experimental projects have repurposed empty hotels into safe havens, providing private rooms, case managers, and direct routes to permanent housing. Still, money by itself doesn't ensure results. City Hall has passed zoning laws requiring new construction to set aside a share of units at below-market rates, forcing gentrification to come with a built-in social responsibility. Landlords that don't comply risk steep penalties and the loss of valuable tax incentives. At the same time, home-based outreach teams have widened their scope, now offering rent mediation, eviction defense, and emergency aid in all neighborhoods citywide. By merging housing and healthcare, these programs are reframing homelessness as a public health emergency rather than a policing issue. The question remains, can these policies expand quickly enough to meet the exploding demand? The months ahead will reveal whether policy power can actually deliver stable homes and safer communities. As public initiatives unfold, the next phase of the fight shifts to the hands of nonprofits and local communities. Grassroots engagement and nonprofit leadership. Working in tandem with city programs, a growing network of grassroots groups has stepped up to plug holes in the social safety net, night after night. Street Outreach NYC teams canvass every borough, handing out food, warm clothing, and hygiene supplies, laying the groundwork for lasting connections. Nonprofits led by veterans organize weekly cookouts at encampments, providing peer support and recovery sessions beneath the motto, "This street is our front porch." In true travel documentary spirit, these quiet heroes illuminate moments of care and kindness that the news often overlooks. Religious coalitions have sprung into action at an unprecedented pace. The Interfaith Action Network unites house churches across the city, turning sanctuaries into nighttime shelters once the sun goes down. Volunteer teams take turns staffing these sites, offering showers, phone charging stations, and job help in a safe and welcoming environment. Free legal clinics, manned by volunteer attorneys, tackle eviction cases and frequently succeed in reversing illegal removal notices. Still, the need far outweighs the help available. Most of these organizations scrape by on shoestring funding, dependent on donation campaigns and infrequent grants. Volunteers are stretched thin, dealing with emotional exhaustion and red tape as they try to align with government systems. So how can these local efforts maintain their energy amid a crisis that shows no signs of slowing down? The key may be forging stronger public-private partnerships, a possibility we'll dive into next. International exemplars of housing solutions. The hurdles facing New York are significant, but the city isn't charting this course alone. Across the country, other urban centers have piloted innovative models that could be tailored to fit the 5 boroughs. Salt Lake City's Housing First approach, offering permanent housing up front with no strings attached, has slashed long-term homelessness by 91% since 2005. In King County, Seattle's tiny home villages paired with comprehensive support services have cut ER trips and jail stays for residents by almost 50%. Over in Helsinki, a national housing guarantee ensures that anyone who applies is placed directly into permanent housing, not temporary shelters, as a matter of legal right. At the core of these forward-thinking programs lies a shared value: human dignity. They remove barriers like sobriety demands and daily check-ins, choosing instead to trust that people will rebuild their lives once housed. These models also feature built-in access to healthcare, employment support, and peer mentorship, creating connection instead of loneliness. Could New York embrace Salt Lake's bold housing-first commitment, or see micro-shelters rise in the unused corners of the Bronx? Translating these strategies will demand political courage, funding shifts, and fast-moving zoning reforms. But the reward, a dramatic drop in street homelessness and a rise in independence, could reshape New York's civic promise. Now that successful models are on the table, the real test is building a united vision for a New York where sidewalks are for walking, not surviving. Articulating a vision for a homeless-free future. Picture a New York where the daily commuter stops not to sidestep a tarp, but to greet a neighbor coming home from a stable night's sleep in their own apartment. Visualize community spaces alive with career training, mental health support, and creative programs, buildings once seen as footnotes, now serving as engines of renewal. See rooftop gardens blooming above former shelters, nurtured by residents who have taken back control and rooted themselves in new beginnings. This vision isn't fantasy, it's the quiet vow found in every piece of legislation, every community meal, and every small home blueprint. It's a commitment that the storytelling lens so vital in any moving documentary can turn hope into reality by showcasing both victories and stark realities. When someone who once slept in a train car walks across the threshold of their own furnished home, that act ignites a cascade: mental healing, family reconnection, and fresh contributions to the economy. Achieving this future calls for lasting teamwork. City leaders must remain agile with budgets, nonprofits need stronger infrastructure, and developers should be rewarded for designing with community impact in mind. If we succeed, the sidewalks once filled with quiet struggle could soon ring with purposeful strides and the sound of neighbors laughing together. Conclusion. The homelessness crisis in New York isn't beyond repair, nor is it theoretical. It's a lived reality etched into the city's streets and skyscrapers. From city programs to grassroots solutions and urban models abroad, all signs point to a future where housing is seen not as a favor, but as a fundamental right. As this story draws to a close, remember, change starts with collective will, and that will awakens when personal stories rise above the static. It's your voice, your ballad, and your time that can transform quiet hopes into daily truths. So when the city lights glow tonight, may they shine not just for the few, but as a beacon of belonging for every New Yorker once left in the shadows.